Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We turn our attention to the economy now and what kinds of information is making the rounds in terms of who said what, the status of our economy. Well, we're joined now by Dr. Adebisi, who is a governance and public sector reform person. He's also an accountant. Thank you for coming on this morning. Well, you have heard a lot of commentary about the status of our economy. Well, and, the president says, well, he used that word, we're broke, but some statisticians think otherwise. But you, a governance person, putting all of those equations in perspective, what do you think?
Now, when we look at what the president is saying, there's no without adequate information in terms of what the finance like, where he is, in terms of if we are broke or if we've got money. However, when we look at the state of the economy, the oil price, which is about 70–80% of our revenue, has just dropped. I mean, from 140, 150 to just about $60–65 per barrel. That means we've taken a huge hit in terms of income coming into the economy. Now, with that simple test, it tells me we could be broke. And of course, when things like this happen, what do you do? And I think Mr. President is doing what he should be doing at the moment. Some of them are painstakingly slow. However, I think is a step in the right direction. For instance, he's now being involved in economic diplomacy, moving from one place to the other to tell the people we want the investment here. That is the business of government. It's not the business of government to provide employment. However, it's the business of government to provide a good ground for investors to come in, for the private sector to come in and create employment. That is the business of government. So I think I'll give Mr. President the benefit of the doubt that we're not doing as good as we should be doing in terms of revenue, in terms of income.
So what should he be doing differently?
At the moment, I think he's doing well in terms of economic diplomacy. But again, we can always do better. For instance, I'll tell you, the last pronouncement he made about the fact that we're going to invite people to come into the economy to help us, to be honest, nobody helps us. Nobody's going to help us. What we need to do is to accelerate the creation of infrastructures, accelerate the creation of the basic business environment that investors want to come into. And as such, I think the language should change. We're broke. However, these are what we are doing to make sure that when you come into our country, you'll be able to function. Yeah, we want you to come and help us. Well, for you to do that, we're trying to make this available to you. So when you come into the economy, you find a good place. You find, I mean, for God's sake, Nigeria is the giant of Africa, truly, in terms of economy. That's the biggest economy. We've got the manpower. We've got 170 million people.
You know, let me, pardon me to button. I mean, just a
Yes.
clarification on the economic diplomacy, which you talked about. Today, in one of the front pages and one of the headlines, they say, quote, foreign investors pull out 11.8 billion naira from NSE in 30 days. So, is this economic diplomacy yielding any fruit?
Now, let's give this government the benefit of the doubt. It's only 6 months old. And of course, the necessary machinery the government needs to run with, which the ministers and all of that is yet to come in. Right? Now, given what we have now, for instance, the introduction of the TSA is causing a bit of havoc here and there. I tell you, those are the expected teething problem anywhere in the world. But that someone is pulling out now does not preclude the fact that many people will come in if the economy, if the place is viable for them to do their business. They will rush in if it's viable. Remember something, Chamberlain. Nigeria, by virtue of where we're located, by virtue of our economy, we are a good place for any well-meaning, any meaningful business around the world to network into the rest of Africa and even beyond. And that is why I think Nigeria is not as bad as we paint it. Nigeria is strong enough, and given the necessary environment in this place, I tell you, Nigeria will rise again.
Well, you say if the environment is conducive for them to do business, don't you
Yes.
think it's conducive to do business?
As it stands now, Chamberlain, I'll tell you, for instance, a manufacturer in Nigeria, power is a huge, huge part of the business. And today, if they're running on generators, cost of production is going to be high. That means when you sell your goods, you cannot compete in the world because of your high cost of production. So what do? That means that environment is not conducive for you to do business. Now, for instance, if we solve the problem of power, the roads are good enough, they can move from one place to the other, they can transport the goods and everything. That is where industry thrives.
But you know, you have people who also say that yes, they do have political capital, and so they could leverage on that and get out there and get people on board.
What do you mean by political capital, Timberlake?
I'm just a little curious. I mean, we all know that government ideally ought to be a continuum, and some people believe that there were some good economic policies which were started by the Jonathan administration. Which one would you like to see continued in this particular administration?
Now, the Jonathan administration has done a lot of work. For instance, the rebasing of the economy to put us in the right perspective in the world. Now, for me, what I would like to see continue is, for instance, the power project has been ongoing, and I would like that to actually get embedded and that to actually take root in this economy. Now, again, access to credit, for instance, I mean, I'll tell you something about the small and medium enterprise. I mean, when you look at the last summit that was done by the NESG, it was based on tough decisions. And I think this is a time that we have to make those tough decisions. Now, the small and medium enterprises, they've been totally sidelined. They're not accessing the funds they need to grow the economy. Now, if that is well done, we can actually improve the tide of unemployment in this country, because the small and medium enterprises, when they grow, they'll be able to get more people engaged in the economy. Now, in terms of employment, now, while the government the president is trying to bring foreign investment into the country, it's going to create employment, that is true, but the small and medium enterprise is a very huge hub in any economy.
So one of the policies you'd like to see continued is focus on the small and medium enterprises. Some people
that is ideal, yes.
Some people will say that, the Central Bank of Nigeria, bought into that particular policy from the previous administration, did set funds aside, but it would seem that the funds are not being accessed as they would have thought. What do you think are some of the problems facing small and medium enterprises? Do you think it's also a lack of knowledge as to where to get these funds, or do you think that the obstacles in their path are too many?